everyone should have some sort of white or cream cable pullover in their wardrobe. It's an essential. Hey there, welcome back to my channel, String Things by Mel. My name is Melissa. I'm a stay-at-home mom living in Vancouver, Canada, and on my channel I like to chat and share everything about my knitting hobby. So in my previous video, my kind of comeback podcast episode, I mentioned that I will be attending an upcoming event, Knit City Vancouver. It was not held in Vancouver last year. Last year's kind of switched. They've added a Western Canada location, and it was in Calgary. But it is back, and this one is kind of extra special because it will be the last time it's hosted in this particular venue, which is the Peony Forum. Don't worry, the event is going to be back. It's not ending, it's just ending at this particular location. So I originally thought I was just gonna go there, enjoy the event. The marketplace in particular is going to be running Saturday, Sunday, 27th and 28th, and I will definitely be there on this Saturday. And then I started thinking about the whole experience and going to the marketplace, and I thought I better go in with at least a short list of a plan, because there are definitely some missed opportunities if you don't go in kind of knowing what to do, even if you don't know exactly what kind of project or any project ideas that you may have in mind. It's good to use these events for kind of just future research, assessment of yarns, things like that. So that's how I treat it anyway. So when I go to these events now, I like to actually pay attention to the samples that are at the booths. When I first started going to fiber festivals, I probably didn't even touch any of the samples. And now, as a more seasoned knitter and with better idea of what I like to actually wear and put on my body and what kind of fabrics I want, looking at those samples, touching those samples, even, maybe ask politely, you might even be able to try on the samples. It's really important to get your hands on these and see what these yarns, how they actually behave in the different samples that the vendors have. Another good reason to go to these festivals is to actually touch all the yarn, touch the different fibers, check out the different constructions of the different yarns. How are they plied? Is it chainette? Is it single ply, two ply? Look at the mohair, the series, and compare those. And also kind of looking at the general color palette that these dyers have. Most of them will have, some special colorways for the event itself, but they also have regular colors that they dye. So checking those out and seeing those in person and thinking, oh, that's a bit more cream than I thought or that I've seen online, etc. Things like that. So that's how I approach these events now. And just kind of, I have a good sense and a good memory because it's very tactile and, memory as well. So, and then I can think back, I'll take photos on my phone as well. And when a project comes up, I can, think back and say, oh, well, I saw a yarn with that kind of construction or that kind of color, and etc. So that's kind of one part of attending fiber festivals for myself. But I had to sit down and think about, what do I actually want to add to my wardrobe this fall that I already don't have? Now, I think I'd like to go deeper into this issue I have in a separate video, but I have a bit of knitting guilt, and I'm sure everyone feels, a little bit of this, but there are so many garments that I have knit, and many of them I have not worn very much, or I have struggled to figure out how to wear them, how to style them, how to create the outfits, because I've knit them as one-off items. I, see something and I think, wow, that is a great top, that is a great sweater. Yes, maybe I've chosen a color that I really like. I've chosen a fiber and a drape, creative fabric that's really nice. However, I didn't think past beyond of, what does it go with in my wardrobe? Like, yes, I'm going to pair it with some pants. But beyond that, and actually creating more stylistic outfits, that is something that hasn't really been at, the forethought for myself. And part of that has been my kind of evolving stages or phases of parenting, of motherhood, being a stay-at-home parent. If you have followed along for a while, then you know sleeves were a really big deal to me. How long, how wide, major issues, major thoughts went into this. And, one thing about sleeves was back when my daughter was in diapers. If a sleeve was too long, too wide, if I pushed it back, rolled it back, and they would fall down, that's risk of getting number one, number two on your sleeves when you're changing diapers. So that was a thing. And when your child is younger and they're more grabby and pulley, I didn't like wearing really baggy, oversized sweaters because they were getting yanked on. That's no longer an issue. The physical interactions that I have with my daughter are, much more pleasant now. They're usually just, like hugging and cuddling. My daughter's not a grabby child. So now I am seeing that I'm kind of, like free, and I can now dress more for myself, to be Melissa rather than focusing on the function of being the mother. And that's a realization that I just came to recently as my daughter has started kindergarten. And I'm like, wow, but what is Melissa's style? So that is something that I'm also trying to rediscover as well. Now I have drop off and pick up 5 days a week. And in this transition period, especially, that we are ending summer, heading into fall, the temperature difference from drop off to pickup is quite different right now. I mean, for example, today, drop off, it was 16 degrees Celsius. By the time I go pick up my daughter, it's forecasted to be 26 degrees Celsius. So wearing a different outfit and choosing an outfit, do you choose it for what's forecasted to be later? Or do you choose it what it's going to be like at drop off and just change your outfit? And I'm kind of leaning into accepting that, it's okay to have multiple outfits in the day. This is how my daughter dresses, and she functions just fine. She goes to school in one outfit, comes home, wants to put on a play outfit, and it goes into the, different roles and functions and activities that you have. What I'm wearing to volleyball is not what I'm wearing at home. What I wear on the, on my bike, etc. So these are all the things. I know it's a lot of preamble, but these are some of the many thoughts that are going through my mind as I'm now picking items for this season in this kind of new phase that I have. So a couple of the items on this list kind of reflect these thoughts, and a couple of them are just kind of outstanding wants that I've had for some time. So I've got my laptop with me, so I will share my screen when so you can see some photos and see some information that I am looking at. But I've intentionally tried to keep the list short because whenever I've created a very long list, there's always, the longer the list, the greater risk of failure. And failure in this case is not knitting it. And there's also another kind of knitting guilt with that too. But yeah, been thinking a lot. This is part of my summer. It was really good to have that break of mulling over all these new things that have popped up into my mind. But so my fall kind of knit wish list starts with an outstanding want I've had for quite some time, and it is a all over, cable pullover. And I thought I was getting kind of close to that idea. I cast on an artisan cardigan, which is a cardigan patterned by Sandnes Garn, and it appears in one of their booklets. However, I decided to just abandon that whip because, well, one, the all over moss stitch or double moss stitch or whatever it is that's on the back panel, laborious, but also not really the vibe, and not, no cables, essentially. So I've decided to ditch that project. And so I recently just found this pattern. I I've been searching for quite some time, and I just came across this pattern the other night, and I saw it and I thought, oh, I think that's the one. I think that is the pattern. So what we're looking at here is the Ogden, which is a pattern by Veta Romankova. Apologies if I've mispronounced that. And it comes from Woolfolk, which is a really lovely, I love, like, this is a yarn company, but they also put out really nice kind of like lookbooks, and their styles for patterns are really quite nice. And this is an all over pullover cabled sweater. It is knit bottom up. That doesn't deter me at all. But what I really like about this one is that the cabling is kind of, it's mirrored on the front and back. It's the same. And there's also some cable detail going down the sleeves as well. And we've got positive ease, but not a lot of positive ease. Boxy fits, just straight fit. And the sleeves aren't really big, so it's kind of like proportional to the amount of positive ease that's in the body. So there's just enough so that you have some room and that you can call it an oversized sweater, but still kind of polished and elegant that way. So what really drew me to this was just the simplicity of the cable pattern. And actually the cables are just running down the center front and the center back, and what you see on the side of the bodies is just some traveling stitches. So there's no actual crossover of the stitches in this kind of large format diamond pattern that's happening. I like doing traveling stitches, they're pretty fun, and the crispness of the stitch definition in this is amazing. So in order to replicate that, I want to try my best to look for a yarn at Knit City that is of similar construction, or something that's going to be tightly spun, like applied yarn that's tightly spun. So the suggested yarn for this one is Woolfolk Far. And this is a worsted weight yarn with chainette construction. So it's 100% merino and has chainette construction, which makes it a really defined yarn when you look at it as a whole. But with the chainette, I believe you still get a bit of room for air, so probably traps quite a bit of air, which lends itself to heat. So probably a pretty warm sweater. It may be slightly less dense because of the chainette construction, but it's a cable sweater, so it's going to be a pretty substantial warming garment. So there are 9 sizes available, ranging from the finished bust circumference measurements of 92.5 to 154 centimeters, or 36.5 to 60.5 inches. It says here it's shown in size 3 with 11 to 21 centimeters, or 4.25 to 8.25. Now this part makes me a little bit like, so you've shown the model in size 3. You haven't said what size bust the model herself is. And so is she actually wearing 11 centimeters positive ease or 21? So when it comes to choosing my size, maybe I'll just take the average of that, like 15 centimeters. So I'm probably looking at knitting a size 2 or 3 for myself. And it's knit on 4mm needles. So the gauge is 22 stitches and 30 rows. So it's, a little bit snug, I think, for worsted weight, but that's going to lend to the stitch definition. Now, in terms of color, I thought, perhaps I could just use that dusty green yarn that I have from that artisan cardigan project, which I have in here. Now, this one I have held 2 strands of Suniscorn Sunday with a strand of the Tin Silk mohair. And, I don't have any full balls in here. Here's the color. It's kind of like this dusty green. Now, my apprehension to using this yarn combination is the presence of mohair. So mohair is very warm. And, yes, it can be cold outside, but I have an issue with, wearing something like this for, say, the Christmas holidays, and you're actually inside. And inside typically gets very warm, especially when you have many family members over. There's baking happening, cooking, social gatherings, and all that. And then I often just overheat and need to take the sweater off, so I can't actually even showcase my wonderful knit sweater. So I think I'm going to keep an eye out for some new yarn at Knit City, and I'm going to try to look for like a cream color. As my cousin says, everyone should have some sort of white or cream cable pullover in their wardrobe. It's an essential. And I definitely agree with that statement. So that is what I'm going to be looking for. Something that is just 100% wool or 100% merino. I don't really want to blend. It can be a little bit on the rustic side because it's something I'd wear with, say, a camisole underneath. And make sure that it's got, a nice tight spin, maybe multiple plies on it, just to achieve the great stitch definition that the sample has. Now, in terms of styling options for this Ogden sweater, I visualize wearing maybe a collared blouse underneath, or just plain white tee if the collar can stick out a bit. Pairing it with maybe some sheer black tights and a skirt and some boots. Um, Wearing it with my winter coats with that open. So also keep in mind what color is going to go well with layering as too. But I think, as I said, it's an essential for my wardrobe. It's going to become a basic, so I'm not too worried about figuring out all the styling options right now. The next pattern I have selected because of this need for different, drop off, pickup temperatures, the transition period of summer to fall. And so when I've been dropping off my daughter, it's been a little bit chilly. So today, I'm wearing blouse number one. I recently finished object. And this one's in all plant fibers, is cotton and viscose and linen. And it's really great. It's just warm enough because it has the long sleeves and it's a DK weight. So it's, substantial fabric to wear. And I'm wearing jeans. And because I'm just, walking her to her school, not spending too much time outside, it's good enough. But there's going to be times where the temperature drops a little bit, but it's not going to be quite cool enough for an actual wool sweater or for me to really want to put on a light jacket. So I thought, maybe add a dickie to my wardrobe. Um, or I don't know what you would call this if you don't refer to it as a dickie. I don't know if dickie is a Canadian thing or not, but it's essentially like a neck scarf thing. I don't think it's just a Canadian term. I'm sure people use this elsewhere. But this is another design coming from Woolfolk, and it's called the Lind. And this features a kind of loose cowl neck and almost looks like a bell over your body, but there are side slits so that you have some movement for your arms. If you put on a jacket, it's going to reduce any kind of excess bunching. So you can wear this over top your shirt on its own, layer it over other things. We see here in the first sample photo, she's got it layered over a really nice blouse. And then she's got it layered underneath a wool jacket. And then she's also got another sample color, a dark one, layered over a knit sweater. So I think that's great. I think that's great versatility there as well. I've also learned that I don't need every single thing I knit to be super versatile. That was one of my kind of like key characteristics of a garment in the past about, emphasizing versatility of it. But I think that's just too much pressure to put on a single garment. So I'm kind of, downgrading how much priority to put on versatility. This one, I imagine a kind of a neutral color. I'm thinking something in the brown, mousy brown, cardboard brown family. Something that's going to go with my either my green jackets or my camel colored jackets. Might be a little too monochrome there, but I'll have to assess that. Um, this one is knit with a bulky weight yarn. The gauge is 15 stitches by 23 rows. And the suggested yarn is Woolfolk Luft. And I have spoken about this yarn in the past. This is the yarn I actually got to squeeze and squish at Flock Fiber Festival last year. I did not go this year. This is a yarn with kind of a chainette construction, but the chainette construction is with Pima cotton. So you kind of have this Pima cotton chain core, and then merino wool is blown into it. So it's a blown yarn. So it's very light. There's no plying of the wool here. If you're familiar with Drops Air, it's very similar construction to Drops Air. I have some here. But Woolfolk Luft is heavier weight. So Drops Air could be maybe like a DK to worsted, whereas Woolfolk Luft is more of a bulky weight, but not too far off. And I think it's important that this layer is something very lightweight because it is a layer, and also it's going over your shoulders, and it's going to be layered on top and also underneath. So I think it is a really good idea to use a blown yarn just to decrease that heaviness. And also if you have to take it off, carry it around, it's going to be just more lightweight to kind of travel with. Actually quite like the color that they have in the first sample photo. So this one just kind of has, it looks like maybe 2 sizes or 4 sizes. I'm not sure. It's listed extra small, medium, large, and extra extra large. So I guess this one, the sizing may not need to be too wide of a range. I imagine, it's based on people's shoulders. So hopefully, it would fit enough bodies. There are the side slits, so that's going to help with positive ease kind of this way if you're fuller busted or more rounded body. And it's knit on 6mm needles. So it should be a really quick project. So not too much yarn needed for this one. I think for the smallest size you need about 500 meters. And that's, given hidden gauge and using the same yarn. If you substitute, might need a little bit more or less, but not too much. So it is something that maybe you could treat yourself to and buy a more pricey yarn, more luxe yarn, because it is a smaller thing. I don't know, like some people like to do that, buy something, be able to get the expensive yarn, but use it on just like a smaller item. I don't know if I'm necessarily like that. So I don't have the yarn for this one either, like the Ogden. So something I will be looking for at Knit City Marketplace. If there isn't any sort of like chainette construction or blown yarn, I should actually say emphasize more on the blown yarn as characteristic of the yarn. If I don't see anything like that at Knit City, then I'll just, continue my search elsewhere. Or I could order Luft from one of my favorite stores in Kelowna, The Art of Yarn. They carry Woolfolk yarn. I'm pretty sure they carry Luft. The Knitting Loft is also another carrier of this yarn if you're on the East Coast. Art of Yarn for West Coast. But yeah, the Lind, another pattern from Woolfolk. And this one's older. This one came out April 2019 is what it says here on Ravelry. The Ogden came out just last month. Okay, number 3 on my list. I have not been saying any numbers, but this is now number 3. Is actually a repeat pattern, and it's the Levitate Wrap. So I have been on the search for a particular color of yarn to make another Levitate Wrap. I love my original version, or my first version, which was using Cascade Ecological Wool, a bulky weight yarn. And I made also a superwash version holding two strands of Drops Baby Merino together. That was more kind of to use up yarn. Wasn't like I needed that second one, but it's been handy. But I want another kind of like fall winter version of the wrap. I want to make it in kind of the next size up. I want some more positive ease out of it just to get more of this like slouch baggy look, like a different silhouette than the first one. And I really, really want a dark charcoal version. Now, whether I find a yarn that just holds single, a bulky weight that holds single, or find strands that I hold, double or triple, haven't quite decided that. That will just kind of be, depends on, what I find in the color that I like. So if it's like 3 strands of fingering I have to hold, I mean, that's probably going to be a bit pricey, but ideally trying to find a bulky weight yarn, or say a DK plus holding something else. I don't want to hold mohair with it, again, for the reasons I said before about getting too warm. As much as I say I'm a cold person, mohair and suri, coupled with, other strands of other yarn, I think it's just too warm for me. Can't do it anymore. I have a bunch of mohair in my stash to use up. I'm gonna have to figure out what I'm gonna do with those. Probably just mohair on its own projects is where it's gonna go. But yes, the Levitate Wrap pattern from My Favorite Things, released a couple years ago. This one, it's knit on 6mm needles. So I guess there's this trend of me right now of wanting big knits. I don't know if you really consider these chunky knits, but I'm back into wanting like worsted bulky weight knits. There are 8 sizes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sizes. Yeah, I have a standalone video about me knitting up my first Levitate wrap if you are interested in that, but that is something I will also be searching for at Knit City. And if I don't find it there, then I'll just continue my search. I don't need to, settle or compromise too much. Like, yes, I want it, but I want, the right yarn for this. That is something I can wait for. I'm a pretty patient person. Number 4, and the last on my wish knit list for fall, is something I actually do have the yarn for. Yeah. So the last item is an accessory. It's a hat or a toque. I typically use the word toque. I am Canadian. And it's the Manhattan hat by Toriu. Incredibly influenced by Elise, Sunday Fiber Co., who knit one as a sample as part of her release for the Grand Palette, a collection that she just did this past summer. And I've ordered the same yarn, so I'm essentially copying Elise. And I haven't actually shared all the yarn I purchased from the Grand Palette, so I'll give you a little sneak peek there and show you which one I'm going to use for my hat. So I guess I didn't put the pattern or the project idea I have on this list because I'm still not entirely sure, but I bought a whole bunch of Grand Palette yarn because I want to make a striped sweater. Most likely the Arrow sweater by Petite Knit. But here is all the yarn that I got. Did not buy every single color, but I feel like half of the colors. This is the one that I'm going to use for my Manhattan hat. This is Team Sisu. This is the Falkland DK base, which is a new base that Elise is now carrying. It feels soft, but, not too soft. I'm hoping it's fine on my head. Probably will be. My head is like less sensitive than my body when it comes to itchiness or things like that. And it should only take 1 skein. And yeah, it's quite an orangey red. I think it will look okay. Hopefully it still looks okay when my tan fades. But yeah, the Manhattan hat, patterned by Tori Yu. It is a really lovely architectural, very structured one by one toque or beanie. I do like how it sits above the head. Yes, creating this kind of like tower or peak, but I think that it's, still flattering on me better than a slouchy hat. Also, when I think of slouchy hats, I just think of, being a millennial. Uh, so there are several sizes included in the pattern. We have baby, toddler, child, adult, small, medium, and large. And I really appreciate that there are kind of a full range of sizes because I do have a small head. I'm kind of a youth-sized head, so there is a chance that I might be knitting up a child size for myself. The suggested yarn is a worsted weight yarn. However, Elise did use her Falkland DK base for her version, and I don't believe there were any issues. I would like to do the single fold version. There is a double fold. I think that would be too warm for myself. And there is a brimless, which I don't think that'll be very flattering with my head shape. So I think single fold is what I'm going to go with. The suggested needles are 3.75 millimeter. Wow, I'm having trouble with that word today. And we have a gauge of 24 stitches by 28 rows. And then these are the other colors I have, which does also include Team Zizou. For a striped sweater that I want to do. Held single, no mohair. No mohair in sight here, folks. There we go. So we have, maybe I'll just hold it up single so you guys can see. But there's a combination of colors that I would like to do for my striped sweater. And I'm thinking blue for the collar because I think, like, if I do red on the collar, I feel like it makes it Christmassy. Same with the green. And this particular blue I think is quite flattering with my skin tone, both tan and non-tan. This one is Unpaid Intern. And I did get a second blue. This one is Christofferson. You can see it's a lighter blue. And then you need kind of a neutral color in there. This one's like the perfect creamy beige. Maybe I should just see if Elise is going to sell more of this one at Knit City and get this for my Ogden sweater. That's, ooh, yeah. Because her worsted base is quite nice. Ooh, okay. I might be looking for sweater quantity of this one. But this is Itinerary. Just beautiful, natural, neutral color. And then got some greens. We have New Penzance and I Saved Latin. I won't be putting like the greens next to the greens and the blues next to the blues in the striping. And the last one here, Alteration of Glove. Yeah, just a little pretty pink. I would never wear this alone, but in combination with the other things, I think it's going to be great. So that brings me to the end of my kind of plans for Knit City, my fall wish knit list. Of course, open to change, but those are things that I'm currently vibing with that I want to work on for sure right now. I do have current whips that I'm working on right now. I do have a mountain of abandoned whips as well. That again goes back into my knitting guild and all these thoughts about my outfits and what I'm making, what I'm wearing, not wearing, and all that. But that's a story for another time. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you are going to Knit City, hope to see you there. Would love to meet you. Come say hi. I'm going to be there on the Saturday. Maybe just spend the whole day there, It's like kid-free day for me, so why not? But until then, happy knitting, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.